It's horror news time. We're going to talk Pet Sematary Remake and these guys. What's up, guys? We're going to do some horror news. I haven't done a horror news video in quite a while, so I thought, hey, got some interesting stories out there, courtesy of iHorror.com and other sites, of course. But yeah, I wanted to talk about these two things. First off, let's talk about the Pet Sematary Remake. Now, last summer there was an announcement of a Pet Sematary Remake, but just recently they started doing casting for this movie. If you don't know what Pet Sematary is, for maybe some of the younger horror fans out there, it's really an interesting story by Stephen King, and it's about this family whose son dies and they bury him in the pet cemetery, because if you're buried in the pet cemetery, then you come back to life. And that premise alone is just really creepy. The original is a bona fide classic. I love the hell out of it. And I got to give a quick shout out to a great friend of mine. This is one of my best military buddies, Rico. And like me, he is a big horror fan. He's a big movie fan. But we served together while I was deployed, and ever since I retired, we still keep in contact. But he actually had the privilege of meeting Denise Crosby, the mother in the original Pet Sematary, at a recent convention. Really cool. And speaking of conventions, we were actually supposed to meet up at Spooky Empire in October, but the recent hurricane put an end to those plans. And Spooky Empire was rescheduled to this December, which I plan on going. And one of the guests at the Spooky Empire was supposed to be Doug Bradley, Pinhead himself. Will he be at the December one? Who knows? Hopefully he will. But back to Pet Sematary. I am worried about this one. I'm not a huge fan of remakes just because most of them aren't that good. There have been a few good ones out there, but the premise alone can make for an interesting movie. So they don't have to stick specifically to the original story. There's really a lot of different ways you could take this. And one bit of promising news for the remake is that director Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, who directed 28 Weeks Later, which is one of my favorite zombie movies, he is directing this movie, and that gives me hope. This could be good. Now, the one thing that really worked about the original is it was just heart-wrenching. You have an element of horror in this little child, but then you also have an element of sadness because, you know, this child was killed by a semi-truck, and I remember when that scene played in the theater, there was just a collective gasp, because that is really the ultimate nightmare for a family, for their young toddler child to be killed. So Pet Sematary Remake could be pretty decent, who knows. Next up is the crossover between Hellraiser and Halloween. Now, this is not really news. This is something that has been thrown around for the past 20 years maybe. But the news is that Doug Bradley, who played Pinhead, actually spoke about this. He states that there was discussion for a crossover, and Dimension Films actually shot down a couple of scripts. The reason being is because they didn't think that it would work, and this was before Freddy vs. Jason had come out. They thought Freddy vs. Jason was gonna be a huge bomb. And boy, were they wrong, because Freddy vs. Jason was a big hit, actually. But Bradley states that after the success of Freddy vs. Jason, Dimension wanted to move forward with the crossover of Halloween and Hellraiser, even stating that he had conversations with Clive Barker about writing it, and Barker stating that John Carpenter himself was going to direct it. Now, personally, I don't think that a Hellraiser Halloween crossover would have worked, just because the two characters are from two completely different worlds, and Pinhead really doesn't, fight. He sends chains out and whatnot. So who knows what could have happened in that team up. Now, if I had to find a reason why it might have worked, maybe because those two characters are probably the most evil of the whole horror genre. Michael is the most evil being on Earth, and Pinhead is one of the top honchos in hell. So if they could have maybe found a good angle for those two aspects of these characters, then maybe it could have worked. Who knows? But will it ever happen? Probably not. So anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on these two bits of news? Looking forward to hearing them. Also, if you want to talk more horror, make sure you visit the Killer Flicks Facebook group, where we talk horror all day, every day. Like, subscribe, comment, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and Drumdum out.